So in the first video, I talked about thinking about what your objective and who your audience was going to be for a presentation, and finding the information and getting that organized. In this video, I want to talk to you about creating and using a slideshow. The first thing that you're going to need to do for creating a slideshow is decide what kind of application you want to use. There are a ton of different options out there, and there are pros or cons to both. So you need to decide what's best for you. The first thing that you want to think about is whether or not you want to use something that's offline or online. The main difference being that offline usually has more bells and whistles in their applications as opposed to online. So you can usually make it a lot more creative. That's not necessarily the case for all of them, but for these two particular ones, I've noticed that there is a big difference between the offline and the online versions of them. So you can start with that. You can also use these same things online. I actually, in preparing for this, realized that you can access Keynote across platforms if I log into iCloud. I never knew that before. So preparing this for you helped to teach me something. So these are actually stored on a cloud service, if you will. I teach English, so I don't know how all that works, but you can access these across multiple devices. So you can see there's a third one in here, Slides in Google Drive. If you've had me in class, you know that I'm a big advocate for Google Drive because it allows you to collaborate in real time. And I think the other ones are starting to allow that as well. So I'm not a big PC person, so Office, I'm not super familiar with that, but I did read that it is starting to allow people to collaborate in real time. And I know that you can also do that with Keynote online now, since I did the research for that. So what I like about using online services like these is that they are accessible across multiple platforms. So if I walk into a building or wherever, an office where I'm giving my presentation and they don't have the same operating system that I have, I can still access it and run it regardless of that. So, and I'm pretty sure, I know as far as Slides in Google Drive that I can use an application on a mobile device as well. So if I have the adapter to project that, I can easily just use my own personal mobile device if whatever device they have or hardware that they have isn't working. So I think that's one of the reasons why I favor online versus offline, that and the collaborative ability. In addition to those, there are some other online options. Prezi, some of you are familiar with, if not all. Prezi's really a lot more creative because it's not a typical slideshow as in shuffling through slides. It allows you to kind of create an outstanding or frame, if you will, of information, and it kind of zooms in and out and moves you through things much more creatively. And Slide Rocket, the one next to Prezi there, I'm not super familiar with it. I just know that it's there and it's an option. And the third one is called PictoChart. Now, PictoChart is actually used to create more of like a poster or an infographic, but they do have a slideshow option. So you can create the poster and then present ultimately the information through a slideshow. So I've only played around with that a little bit, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I do like it as far as creating an infographic and that you can actually print or embed into a into a website. So that's kind of an interesting option as well. So once I've decided how I want to, or which application I want to use, the next thing I need to think about are themes. And this all goes back to, again, what is my objective and who is my audience? I need to make sure I'm choosing things that are appropriate for both of those things. You know, if I choose a super colorful one, but my topic is something that's not so colorful, a good example, every year I have my students in my sophomore classes do presentations on the Holocaust. So I probably would not want to choose a super colorful, upbeat, happy mood-ish theme that has all kinds of blocks of colors, given the tone of that particular topic is a little bit more somber than that. So it's important to make sure you're choosing your themes so they're not distracting or not inappropriate. The next thing I need to do is when I'm creating my slides, I need to consider several different things. I want to talk about the layout or think about the layout. I want to think about what kind of titles I want to use. Your titles should not be full sentences. Your titles should just be kind of 1 to 3 words, phrases. In fact, if you've done your outline like you did before, like we talked about the video before, these should actually just be the words that are the top headings of your different parts of your outline. So you already have that work done pretty much. When you're thinking about your text, this is really important to think about what kind of text, like font, you want to use. You want to make sure, 1, it's big enough, 2, that the color does not clash or get washed out with the theme colors. I've had a lot of students who've chosen really pretty bright colors, but you can't see them because their background, and when it's actually projected, it looks a lot different than what it does on a screen. So it's important to make sure that your text color and text font are appropriate, again, in mood, and they contrast with the background. The next thing you want to talk about or think about are images. So your images should represent some topic that you're going to be talking about on that slide. I've seen really, really, really effective speakers who have no text whatsoever on any of their slides. They just have images. So basically is a virtual poster that they use. And that all depends on what kind of presentation you're giving. So, you have to decide, what do I want to be conveyed through text versus what can be conveyed through images. Text is usually reserved for statistics or dates or famous quotes or something along those lines, because you're not going to be using a lot of text. You want this to be more of a visual thing than words. You can also you want to consider, do I want to use actual pictures or do I want to use clip art? And you might want to think about charts and graphs as well, because you can use those to help prove your objective. Next thing you need to think about is the transition and animations. I don't know how much people play with these. I know offline you have a lot, like I said, more bells and whistles than you do with online applications, but the transitions are how you move from slide to slide, and the animations are how the words and images come in or come out of the slide. Now, you don't have to have any. You can just have everything up on the screen as soon as you hit the advance button. But I think that's kind of defeats the purpose. So you want to consider how you want to transition and what animations you want. And again, a lot of this goes with your objective. You have to think about your objective. Going back to the Holocaust example that I was talking about, the presentations, I've had students who very unfortunately chose very inappropriate animations. And it sounds funny when I say it, but they chose, there's a flaming animation that the words look like they're on fire. And while it seems like it would be appropriate to use that with the Holocaust, it's not. It seems kind of like sacrilegious. And you probably don't want to use a bouncing animation, the words bounce in, when you're talking about something like the Holocaust. So choose your animations and your transitions carefully.